Oh.
Welcome back to Beagle Eye Vision's Internet. I'm so glad you guys made it back here. This book is awesome. I'm gonna throw in a lot of information at you guys really fast, but I didn't take that many notes, so we're not gonna be here that long today. So the book today we're doing is called The Ghost of the Takaido Inn. It's a fantastic book, and I'm gonna read about the authors, Dorothy and Thomas Hubler. Gosh, I keep butchering that. Dorothy and Thomas Hubler are the authors of more than 100 trade books, including fiction and nonfiction for children and young adults. Their work has been cited for excellence by Library of Congress, the Society for National Librarians International, the National Council for Social Studies, the National Council of Teachers of English, the International Reading Association, the Mystery Writers of America, the National Conference of Christians and Jews, the International Reading Association, Bank Street College, and the New York Public Library. They won an Edgar Allan Poe Award, it's called. They won an Edgar for their young adult novel set in the 18th century Japan, which is what we're about to dive into. Dorothy E. Hubler earned her Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in history at Wells College. She has a master's degree in American history from New York University. She was an editor in the Social Studies School Book Department of Holt Rinehart and Winston before becoming a full-time writer. Thomas W. Hubler graduated with a major from English of the University of Notre Dame, everybody. University of Notre Dame right here in South Bend. This guy is a legend. You can't keep a good man down. He has a master's degree in education from Xavier University. He was a teacher at a private school in Cincinnati for several years before becoming a full-time freelance writer. He was a school text editor for Globe Book Company and an editor on a trade magazine. So the amount of work these guys have done is astounding. Hopefully they're getting into the territory of the one great work, which I think with this book we're going to steer it in that direction. We're going to steer it in the direction of the One Great Work Network. So stick around to the end, and I'm going to be diving deep. So the first chapter, let's get into it. The first chapter introduces us to our main character, Seiki, a 14-year-old who is the son of a tea merchant. Synchronistically, Beagle Eye Visions had just recently, we recently acquired a Gaiwan, as you see here, and some fantastic tea from Jesse's Tea House. And I gotta say, this is not a paid advertisement. Jesse's Tea House does not pay me. Well, we've been drinking their tea for the last weeks and ever since we got it, and this tea is phenomenal. I'm never drinking tea out of a tea bag ever again for the rest of my life. This tea is so good, and it's he's got like different. He's got one tea that's from 2023. He's got one tea that's from like 2010, and then there's another tea that's from 2008 or something like that. It is fantastic tea, and it's so good. I'll talk about it all day. We're gonna be doing some live streams here soon of just drinking tea and talking about natural law. So hopefully you guys can join us on the live streams where we will be drinking tea, some fantastic tea, and talking about natural law and moral philosophy. I'm very excited about that. But back to the book. So, Jessie'sTeaHouse.com, I'll put it in the description below. The tea is 10 out of 10. I can't stop talking about it, sorry. So Seiki and his father are traveling by Kago to Edo to begin a new tea firm. While traveling, a group of samurai pass, and we learn that Seiki yearns to be a samurai. They enter the town of Kameyama, where they plan to rest for the night, and then the daimyo, who is the subordinate of the shogun, is staying at the very same inn and requests tea from Seiki's father. Toda, the father, asks Seiki if he wants to join, saying it would be good for him to see how a daimyo acts. Toda seems like a very good man. He is a legend. Shout out to Toda, the father in this book. He tips very well as they're traveling. He tips the people on the streets very well. He takes care of them. He gives the needy some coins. The whole time during the whole time that Seiki and Toda are traveling together, he's just dropping like just absolute nuggets of wisdom he's just dropping so much knowledge on his son, like a total boss, like a legend. He's just like, if you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. He's just constantly just nuggets of wisdom. Here's a nugget of wisdom. Here's a nugget of wisdom of alchemical gold. I love Toda. He's very awesome. Toda, I mean, even he makes a comment that he says there may be some truth in every religion, and that quote was really awesome. That made me smile. It is important to also understand that the etymology of religion means to thwart from forward progress, or to tie, or to tie back. I know there's a lot of debate on the etymology of the word religion, but you know, if you do your research, you will find out the truth. So getting into chapter 3, in chapter 3, Seiki meets the daughter of a papermaker, and she tells him a very intriguing ghost story about the Jinkaniki. When meeting the daimyo, they both noticed that is poetry. Oh, that his poetry. I forgot to add an H in my notes. That the daimyo's poetry is not very impressive, and they both also comment that Lord Hakuseki, he does not have a noble spirit. Michiko, a girl that Seiki meets at the inn, they have a conversation while she tells him the ghost story, and then they both agree that Lord Hakuseki does not have a very noble spirit, and you can tell he's very arrogant. He's very egotistical. Here's our first quote, sorry. I would not be that way if I were a samurai, Seiki thought. He reminded himself of the 3 qualities of samurai: loyalty, right conduct, and bravery. Right conduct meant leading an example for others to follow. Lord Hakuseki, powerful though he was, did not know the difference between right and wrong. That's a direct quote from page 31. And obviously, if you study the channel, that quote also made me smile. Him not knowing the difference between right and wrong, that doesn't make me happy per se. But you know, yeah, like I said, he's a very egotistical guy, and he doesn't treat his servants with respect. He's very disrespectful to the people around him. Chapter 5, our main characters Toda and Seiki have a rude awakening. Hakuseki reports that there is a thief, and the boys and everyone else is required to stay the night until the judge shows up for investigation. While Judge Uka conducts the investigation, the missing jewel is found in the papermaker's room. Seiki has a crush on the daughter of Michiko, so he begins to fear the worst for the papermakers. Before we get to chapter 8, Seiki speaks up about what he saw. He's brave. Seiki's so brave for even saying what he said. He's extremely brave, and it's awesome. Seiki has a very noble spirit, unlike Hakuseki. So Seiki speaks up about what he saw before he fell asleep. Judge Uka puts it together that the thief must be a part of the troupe that performed a play that very same night. The jewel in the papermaker's room happened to be a fake. Michiko came up to Seiki. "I owe you more than I could possibly repay," she said. "You saved my father and I from being tortured." This is awesome. Seiki's reply, all he said was, "I only told the truth." I only told the truth, he said. "It is honorable to speak the truth without regard for the consequences." Page 54. Yes, Seiki, my man! That quote is exactly one of the reasons why I love this book. This book is 10 out of 10. So, Judge Uka decides he might need assistance and takes Seiki to chase the thief, telling Toda that he will bring his son to Edo in a few short days. Before Judge Uka and his pupil's journey begins, Seiki receives a wooden sword, and it's really cool. He even mentions, Seiki mentions in the book that of course he wanted to unsheath the sword and start playing with it, but he tells himself that's not what a samurai would do. So he accepts the sword and puts it in his belt, and it's such an awesome scene. I love it. It's so cool. Before Judge Uka and his pupil's journey. Oh, he receives the wooden sword. Sorry. The judge and Seiki follow a Kamuso to the city of eyes, and they stopped to rest, leading us to chapter 10. Chapter 10 is called The 47 Ronin. Should a samurai ever lose or fail his master, he suffers the greatest shame in all of Japanese society. He becomes a Ronin. And yet to know the story of the 47 Ronin is to know the story of all Japan. And that is a quote from the 2013 movie of the same name, an epic film with Keanu Reeves. And you know how we feel about Keanu Reeves on this channel. He's a total legend as well. So major spoilers ahead. I know we're running really fast. Here comes the spoilers. We're gonna do our spoiler dance. Which one is it? Which one? Spoiler dance. It's the spoiler dance. So if you're still here, you're kind of a Turd Ferguson. But if you've read the book, we're gonna keep going on. So major spoilers ahead. Seiki then meets up with the troupe at the theater stage and discovers where the thief went, with assistance of a 14-year-old stagehand named Kazuo. And Kazuo is pretty cool too, but he's you can tell he's young, and he's kind of closed-minded in some parts. Kazuo takes Seiki to a tea house where he meets the main actor, Tomami. Tomami challenges Seiki to a duel, but since he is older and much stronger, he ends up stealing Seiki's sword, which, that produces a lot of anxiety for Seiki because he wants to be a samurai. And if a samurai loses his sword, he either has to commit seppuku, or the enemy will decide what they want to do with him. So realizing he can't go back to the judge as a weaponless samurai, he has to acquire his sword back, and it's really intense. This leads Seiki on an arduous journey that truly tests his will. There is a scene where he is walking to Idu, and his feet begin to bruise and bleed, reminding me of the previous book, one of the previous books we covered, the Barcode Tattoo. If you haven't read the Barcode Tattoo or the Barcode series, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look into these books, because those books are perfect for the age, perfect for the age range of 14 to 14 to 17 to 18. I mean, those books are, I think the allegory of those books are great for everybody of all ages to understand. But that's when I discovered the Barcode Tattoo books. I was I was probably 15 actually when I discovered the Barcode books. So those are awesome. If you haven't watched the book reviews of those, go back and check them out. Go back and buy the books. Those are a great series of books. I love those books. So I'm going to stop here, but I will add some closing comments. So like I said, I really didn't want to give too much away of this book. I feel like it's along the line of Dennis Gilmore, or again the Barcode series of tattoos, where I feel like a lot of people haven't read these books. So I don't want to give too much away. Hopefully I gave you enough information to whet your appetite. This book is 10 out of 10, I'm telling you. 10 out of 10. So I want to add some closing comments on samurai, and yeah. So according to what is a samurai? According to Wikipedia, samurai were the hereditary military nobility and officer caste of medieval and early modern Japan from the late 12th century until the abolition in the late 1870s. So why I personally respect a samurai is because noble samurai live by the code. And what is the code? The code of Bushido. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The way of the warrior. It is a moral code. Yes, a moral code. This is one of the few times in the history of the entire human race where the human race was close to aligning ourselves with natural law. Because like I mentioned, Bushido. It's the way of the warrior, the moral code, the moral foundation. The samurai also had a close relationship to nature. And there's a scene in the book, the same scene where Seiki gets his sword. You notice how close samurai are to nature. Samurai have they have gardens where the whole purpose of the garden is to the garden is set up to where you do deep internal reflection. You reflect on the self and think about the self. You know, these gardens. We have one of these gardens in Mishawaka. It's called the Shirijiri Garden, and we'll do a video. Maybe we'll make some tea in the summer. We'll go there and do a video and talk about it, because yeah, these gardens are amazing. I would love to have one in my backyard, especially if you've ever been. For those who are in the South Bend area who know what I'm talking about, the Shirijiri garden. It's beautiful, and that garden, yes, I would say if you sit in that garden for 30 minutes in silence by yourself, it's inevitable. You're going to be doing some self-reflection. That is one of my favorite places to go to around here. It's one of the reasons why I love South Bend, and there's a lot of great history. I'll do a video on the history of the Shirijiri Garden, because I know when I was in high school I took a tour. We walked from the Mishawaka High School to the Shirijiri Garden, and the guy told us about it. And there's even trees that are from Japan that are in that garden. It's awesome, beautiful, just gorgeous. Like I said, the samurai have a close relationship with nature. A big conflict in this book is that people in Japan in the Edo period, they feared that the Christian religion would come into Japan and infiltrate Japan, basically, and begin to obfuscate the samurai's relationship to nature. And I would argue that that's exactly what happened. And if you read the book, there's a scene where Judge Uka talks about how Christianity has basically destroyed samurai. I mean, because Christianity began getting popular in Japan during the period of the samurai, and yeah, exactly what I said. Christianity obfuscated the samurai and Bushido. What is obfuscation? The definitions are very important. We need to study definitions, like the etymology. This is where we can learn, and we can get closer. We can align ourselves closer to the truth. So obfuscation is the action of making something obscure or unclear or unintelligible. While us here at Beagle Eye Visions, we are anarchists, but we do realize that during the samurai period, that wasn't true anarchy, because the samurai, they still had masters, right? But at the same time, they did understand the principles. They had the foundation, and there were people of the town, like the lower, I don't want to say lower class, because that's kind of derogatory, but you know, like the civilians of the period, they respected the samurai, and you know, there were certain samurai, the noble samurai respected them. You know, it was a interesting period of history. The principle of self-defense, for example, was one of the oldest principles known to man. And the samurai, again, they understood this principle. They understood the principle of self-defense. If you challenged somebody, if a samurai were to unsheath his sword, he was required to use it. And if the samurai didn't use his sword, he was required to commit seppuku. Seppuku. I haven't drank enough tea yet today to get my, to get my English correct. So this is why it's so important to study history, because those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. You know, this is there was a peaceful Edo period, 1603 to 1868. But in the 1870s, samurai started getting wiped out and replaced with mere foot soldiers. So these foot soldiers did not have the same respect or the same foundational principles that the samurai had, you know. And that's what we have all over the world. You know, we just have foot soldiers, order-following cowards who merely just are told what to do, and they don't distinguish the difference between right and wrong. They don't question the difference between right and wrong. You know, they just take the order and go, because that's what they get paid to do. If they started questioning things, you know, their paycheck would be challenged. You know, it's very deep. these foot soldiers with zero alignment to nature. I mean, look at the soldiers we have today, especially in America. Do you think they have any alignment to nature? Do you think they have any foundational principles? I would argue no, absolutely not. They don't. You know, these so-called men, if these so-called men had principles today, they wouldn't be a soldier. They would cease to be a soldier. You know, and let's get into some green language, like some green language of the word soldier. If you break it down, it's soul dire, right? There's that famous song, I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier. It's break the word down. This is how we can study these words. These words have, I was listening to Will Keller talk about it last night. These words have, they're not subjective, right? These words have a foundation, and the words aren't relative, right? The soul dire, the dire of the soul. That's what a soldier is, a soul killer. So moving forward, we need to adopt these principles. We need to understand the difference between right and wrong. We need to have these foundations that the samurai had. You know, that's the reason why you study history is you take out what's good. You take out what's good of the culture, like some phenomenal tea. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you take out what's important. Take out the foundational principles and weed out the inconsistencies. This is important. This is why we need to study history. This is why we need to talk about history. You know, nobody's talking about these things. When was the last time you had a conversation with somebody about samurai? When was the last time you had a conversation about any history, period? You know, there's YouTube videos, but are you taking that YouTube video after you watching it and beginning a conversation and asking people what they think about it? You know what I mean? So we need to have these foundation. We need to have these foundational principles. Do no harm and take no bull honky. Like, do no harm and take no stuff, right? But do no harm comes first. That's the first part. This is what Judge Uka was all about. He was against torture and all about respect. So before we close out, I'm going to read a direct quote from Judge Uka just to show how legendary this man was. He's a really good man. And we don't have many of those anymore. It's rare. It's so rare. This is a direct quote from page 206. My feeling is that torture is useless in solving crimes, Judge Uka said. Most people will confess to anything if they are tortured long enough, whether they have committed a crime or not. My assistance merely shows suspects the instruments of torture. In this case, the innkeeper was left alone with them, and he used the sword to commit seppuku. That showed me how unusual a crime this was. It told me all I needed to know. That's an example of the intelligence of Judge Uka out of this book. He's a character in this book. I totally respect Judge Uka. He's an absolute legend, you know. And here's the author's note on page 214. Judge Uka was a real person, a friend and advisor to Yoshimune? I know I'm not saying that correctly. The 8th shogun of the Tokugawa family. Yoshimune served as shogun between 1717 and 1744 and was eager to revive the samurai tradition and spirit. The story of the 47 Ronin is also a true one, which has inspired many Japanese playwrights and storytellers. Judge Uka did in fact oppose torture as a way of forcing a confession from suspects. The judge's ability to solve crimes through his amazing powers of reasoning made him famous even during his lifetime. Since then, tales of Judge Uka have remained popular, causing some to call him the Sherlock Holmes of Japan. That's awesome. I love that. This story, however, comes from the imagination of the authors. So this book is fantastic. Actually, this is hardcover. There's a lot of copies of this book. You can get it hardcover or paper cover, but I think even the hardcover of this book was about $12. So again, I just want to hammer on the moral principles, the moral foundation. This is what we need going forward in society. We need to talk to each other. We need to communicate with each other. We need to have strong communication. Yes, all these things are so important. We need to study natural law. If you have any questions on natural law, tune into the One Great Work Network at any time. Again, I will leave another link in this comment. Tune into the One Great Work Network at any time. This is how I found out about this. I know what I know because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. The people who are brave enough to speak out on the internet about these things, and brave enough to speak out about about the principles. They're important. And look around today. There's a lot of suffering going on today. You can tell people aren't talking about these moral principles. It's very frustrating. So, anyways, I hope you've made it this far. Please look for, this is one of the things that we got out of Jesse's Tea House. Some good culture there. Learning. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Study morals, study principles, check out the One Great Work Network. There's a lot of people talking about this, and people need to pay attention. Thanks for sticking around. What's the next book? Actually, with how much I've talked about natural law in this episode, I'm going to do, what's it called? Give to Nature, and Nature Will Give to You by Indigo Martin. Before we get into the deeper information like what we did in the musical Truth, we're going to do Esoteric Hollywood this year by Jay Dyer. But before we get into that, we're going to do some more natural law book. So Give to Nature and Nature Will Give to You is the next book. So look out for that one in March. And yes, study these principles, study the One Great Work. It's so important. All right. Peace out, Internet.